Okay. So let me recap it again. If you are going to send any SQL query directly like this, right? Whenever you execute any SQL query, this is called direct SQL query. Whenever you execute any SQL query like this, so what happens? So first it will be compiled, then only it will be executed. It has to go through two levels, compilation and execution. Every time, if you execute it 100 times, it will be compiled 100 times. Are you with me? And during its compilation, every time it will create an execution plan. What is meant by execution plan? So it has to calculate, because in your programming, in your SQL programming, you will be defining thousands of variables. You will be utilizing thousands of resources. So it has to create an execution plan. How much space has to be allocated? How many resources are to be used to complete your program execution? So that complete execution plan will be created as part of your compilation. So once it is done, then it will go to next stage. Here it will be executed. So every time whenever you execute any direct SQL query, first it will be compiled, then executed. Every time these two steps are to be performed. See, anyway, we are going to see every day. So what is my job? Whenever I start working on the system, every morning I have to pull list of employees data, list of male data and list of female data, and send some report to the respective teams. I know that this query is going to be constant every day. It is not going to be changed. When it is not going to be changed, if that is not going to carry any changes, why should I compile it again and again? If I'm going to execute it 100 times, it will be compiled 100 times. Why should I recompile that same code again and again when there are no changes to be compiled? But still it will compile. If you just execute it, it will compile and create execution plan, then execute. If you execute it 100 times, these two steps will be repeated 100 different times. This leads to a problem. When there are no changes, why should I recompile it again? Rather, we can execute it directly, right? Without any compilation. We can reuse the execution plan, but that is not possible through your direct SQL queries. And second thing, if you're going to insert some data into your employee table, for example, in your Facebook or Gmail, right? So when it comes to user registration page, user will fill up the form, and when you click on save, you have to create a query like this. Insert into user table, insert into users and values. Here you have to prepare a query like this. Username, some ABC, and his gender male, age 23 years, something like this, right? And this query has to be supplied from front end to back end, your database server. Now this entire query is going to be travel from your UI to backend database server. And once it reaches your backend database server, your SQL will take care of executing this query. It means it will take care of inserting this user into the database table. But if this query is going to be traveled over the network, there can be a risk. Hackers may enter into the network. They may hack your data and inject some malware. I mean, in place of ABC, they can inject some malicious data. Are you know what happens? They will just change the values, that's it. What happens? In place of your original data, some malicious data will get inserted into a table. Now what happens? Your entire table will get corrupted. Your database might get corrupted. That leads to a problem. So this process is called SQL injection. If you send this SQL query directly from front end to back end, someone may hack your SQL and inject some malicious data. So these are the major two drawbacks identified with your direct SQL query. To avoid this, what has to be done? We should not pass SQL queries directly from front end to back end. Rather, create a new concept called views. Why do we need views? If you want to reuse your compilation, if you want to reuse your execution plan, if you want your query has to be executed directly without any compilation, and if you want to protect your data from hackers, if you want to minimize the risk of SQL injection over the network, then your approach should be towards view. When it comes to a view is also called as a virtual table. This is not a physical table. It doesn't hold any data physically, but this is called database object. We also call it as a virtual table. It behaves like your table. Are you to me? So what they're saying, like, you should not pass a SQL query directly like this. Rather, create a view and keep your SQL program inside this view. When it comes to view, a view will be created physically in your database and your SQL query will be stored inside that view. And whenever you want to perform this operation, you don't have to pass any SQL query like this because it is already there in your view. In order to execute this, you just need to call your view. That's it. So if your view gets hacked, they can see the view name, but they cannot see what is there inside the view because we have kept our SQL inside the view that is there in the database. Ready me? So when it comes to view, once view gets created, your SQL will be compiled only once throughout the lifetime. Once this execution plan is generated, this will also be stored along with your view. And when it comes to subsequent execution, your view will be executed directly without any compilation. So your execution plan will be reused every time. So the compilation time will be saved. And earlier, we used to pass the queries directly from front end to back end. Now you don't have to pass queries like this. Rather, you just need to call view. That's it. Call your view. That's it. And whatever is there inside your view will take care of executing it. So we can minimize the risk of SQL injection also. Okay. Now, how do I create a view? So very simple. So create view name. For example, I want to get employee data. Just that's it. Earlier we used to pass this query directly, right? Now just create a view, create view name as here we can write any SQL query, any SQL programming. Ready to me? So write your SQL query and execute it. Write your SQL query and execute it. Okay, so once view gets created like this, here you can see your view, male employee data, female employee data. Male and female. Right? Now what happens? Now I have stored my SQL inside these two views. Male SQL has been stored inside male, female SQL has been stored inside female. Whenever I want to get male data, I just need to call the view. I don't need to pass my SQL. Something like this. How do I call it? Select star from view name, like your table name. Now what it will do? Whatever is there inside your view, it will just execute that view. Okay, from front end, now you have to call something like this, select star from view name. So if this gets hacked, they can see the view name, but they don't know what is there inside this view. It is very difficult to hack your SQL. Ready me? And through view, you could also perform insertions and deletions. You can insert data through your view and you can update your data through your view. You could also retrieve your data from your view. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
Okay. And here we have two views, female view and male view. If you want only this particular data has to be saved through your view, or if you want to perform any operation related to this particular criteria, if only that particular criteria has to be accepted, validated, then you would make use of an option called with check option. If I keep with check option, so whenever you try to insert something or update something, every time it will consider this particular where condition. Whenever any new record comes, it will check where gender is equal female or not. If you try to insert a male record, here what happens? Here it is looking for female. So condition will not be matched. So that record cannot be inserted through your female. Read me. So if this condition gets modified, then only your record will be allowed for saving. Okay, so that's why whenever you need to implement these kind of scenarios, you have to make use of an option called with check option. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, next. Here I have created my view, right? So this view is working on a table called employee. Throughout the lifetime, it will be working with employee table. For example, by mistake, I'm going to delete the employee table. Delete or drop table employee. Now what happens? This table will be dropped. Your view doesn't know that this table has got dropped. Now, when you try to extract data from your view, what happens? It will try to extract data from employee, but technically that employee is not there. Then it will realize that, oh, this table got dropped. Then it throws the error. It doesn't maintain any details about your table. This can be dropped. Are you getting me? So what has to be done? Now this view is depending on this particular table. If you're going to drop this table, you need to let all your dependencies know about it, because they are working based on your table data. If you want to drop it, first you need to get all the dependencies dropped. I cannot intimate them manually. Whenever someone try to drop it, it should check all the dependencies. If there are any dependencies on this table, it should not be dropped. If you still try to drop it explicitly, you should not be allowed to drop it. But now I can drop it. Are you with me? Now I can drop it. So if you want to do that, what has to be done? Here you have to use another option called schema binding. With schema binding, while creating your view, here we already created it, just alter it. While creating your view, you have to use the option called with schema binding. With schema binding. Okay, so it will be binding with the schema of your table. If someone try to modify it, delete it, do any operation, except inserting data, updating data, deleting data. If they make any changes to schema of this table, it will not be allowed, because others are, your view is depending on this table. So while creating your view, if you give this option, so what happens? If someone try to delete your table, it will not be deleted. Are you getting me? So not only delete, if you try to make changes to schema of this table, you will not be allowed. That is called schema binding. So you should be aware of these two options when you talk about views: with schema binding, with check option. What is with schema binding? If I do not keep this, the user can delete this underlying table. Are you getting me? A user will be allowed to delete that table. If I keep this, no, any changes to schema will not be allowed. Why do I need with check option? Let's create it using with check option. It got created. Keep EMP ID, EMP name, next department 8. Now execute it. Department ID, not department. DEPT ID. So here, by default, who is the owner of this schema? DBO. Okay. Who is the owner of the schema? If you go to your table, here you can see this. It is saying that you have to give the complete name. So who is the owner of the schema? DBO. That is the owner of your table, your schema. It is saying that if you want to give the schema binding, because there can be other tables with the same name and different schema. So that's why it is asking you to give the schema name also, the complete name of your table. Now execute it. Okay. Now schema binding has got created. Now it is having some bonding with your table. So if you try to make any changes to schema of this particular table, see, let's try to drop this. Drop dbo.employee. What happened? Cannot drop table employee because it is being referenced by this view. It is saying that, hey, it has dependency over other things. Other things are using this table, that's why you cannot delete it. That is a use of with schema binding. if I do not create a view using with schema binding, so what happens? If I try to delete it, I'll be allowed to delete it. I can delete it. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me show you that also. Select star into dbo dot employee one from employee. Now what it will do? Select star into dbo dot employee one. Technical, there is no table called dbo dot employee one. Okay, but if I write a command like this, select star all into employee one, it will create a table with a similar structure of employee. It will create a table with a similar structure of employee and copies the complete data from employee to employee one. I'm going to delete employee. That's why I'm just creating a replica of employee. Now one more table will be created with the name employee one. Just go and see. Now I can see employee one. Right? Now I'm going to delete. So remove with schema binding. Remove with schema binding and alter it again. Right? Now I'm going to delete it. What happened? Comment completed success. My table got deleted. Now if I try to select data from view, technically this view is depending on employee table, but by mistake we deleted it. Now if you try to call your view, what happens? Now it will get realized that, oh, there is no table called employee. See, invalid object name employee. It is saying that employee is not there. This leads to a problem, right? So if a table is having any dependencies, right? If there are no dependencies, it has to be allowed for delete or anything, any modification. If it is having any dependency, first you need to get those dependencies removed. Then only you have to delete your table. If you want to take that level of implementation, so what has to be done? You have to create some kind of relationship between a view and dependencies. So when it comes to view, that can be done through with schema binding. With schema binding. Any questions, guys? Here now, just refresh your table. See, employee is not there. You can see only employee one. Now, how do I restore it back to employee? Same thing. Select star into dbo dot employee from dbo dot employee one. Now we have employee one, right? Now we are creating one more replica with the name employee from employee one. Now you will see two tables. So whenever you need to copy the entire table data, you can do like this. Now I can see my data. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
Okay, so this is something about your view. So why do I need a view?
To
If your
prevent
query is not
SQL
going to be
injection.
changed every time, if some set of data, if some set of similar data is going to be requested frequently, if some user is searching for similar type of data frequently, if one or set of users are looking for similar data frequently, then what you have to do? Write your query, create your view, keep that query inside that view. If this filter criteria is not going to be changed frequently. For example, when it comes to Flipkart, you will have set of filter fields. Those are not going to be changed from day to day. You can filter your things using brand name, price range, and other filters. Today, I saw 5 filters. When you visit that site tomorrow, you will see same set of filters. It means the criteria is not going to be changed. What you will do, select star from products where brand is equal to this, product name is equal to this, price range is this. And this is going to be constant. It is not going to be changed. In that case, what should I do? I have to create a view on that particular table and keep the SQL inside that view. Are you with me? Now what happens? Now millions of people will be using that criteria. Every time this query has to be executed. If I send that query directly from front end to back end, what happens? If that is getting called n number of times, it should be compiled n number of times, right? So that execution plan will not be reused. But if I keep it inside a view, what happens? So it will be compiled only once throughout the lifetime. And whenever it gets called from UI, it will be executed directly without any compilation. So your view is called a kind of pre-compiled code, which will be compiled only once throughout the lifetime during your view creation. And from next time onwards, it will be executed directly without any compilation. So compilation time will be saved. Your execution plan will be reused. Are you following me, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do I create a view? You can use set of options while creating your view. The first option is with check option. For example, if you're writing any where condition inside your view, if you want only the similar type of data, only the similar category of data has to be modified or inserted through your view, use with the check option. Whenever any insertion or updation comes to your view, it will check this option, whether that particular data is satisfying this condition or not. For example, your gender is called female. Now someone tried to insert a male record. It will check whether gender is male or female. If it is male, it will not be allowed to insert data through your view. They can insert directly into your table. But if they want to perform that operation through your view, it has to satisfy this condition. So only female related operations are allowed through this view. Read me. And if I remove this option, now you can insert any data through your view. Okay. And another option is like with schema binding. Why do we need with schema binding? Many interviewers will ask these questions, guys. What is the use of with schema binding?
To maintain the skeleton of the table, we cannot alter the skeleton of the table if we use the schema.
Okay,
binding.
if I do not use with schema binding, what happens? For example, this view is created based on employee table. Let's say someone has deleted this employee table. Now, whenever you make a call to your view, what happens? It will try to extract the data from employee. But it was already deleted by someone. Now what happens? It throws error. It doesn't know that someone has deleted it. If someone try to delete it, immediately it should know about all the dependencies. If you want to let all the dependencies know about it, the deletion of your table or modification to any schema of your table. So you have to use an option called with schema binding. Okay, so that is the use of with schema binding. So in the next session, we'll be discussing about other advanced concepts like partition view, stored procedures, and functions. Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, so please do practice views before coming to next session.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, okay, guys, right.
Thank you.